300 million years ago, Earth was a completely different reality from what we see today. At that time, instead of the familiar trees, giant horsetails dominated, reaching heights of up to 10 stories. They formed dense forests where, instead of the usual undergrowth, mossy plants resembling modern ferns grew. Additionally, centipedes up to a meter long crawled through the marshy areas, creating an indescribable picture of life on the planet. The Carboniferous and Permian periods were times when Earth was preparing for the arrival of dinosaurs, but before that, it had to undergo numerous remarkable transformations. During this time, vast coal deposits began to form, resulting from the decay of these giant plants. The coal that later became the basis for our modern fuel was formed through complex chemical processes occurring in the endless marshes. At the same time, the first reptiles appeared on land, which became the predecessors of dinosaurs. While life was developing on the surface, marine predators like megalodons and their predecessors, the size of modern buses, ruled the oceans. Among the unique organisms of that time were trilobites and ammonites, which inhabited the ocean depths and played a crucial role in the ecosystems. Meanwhile, on land, significant changes were taking place. Continents began to move, forming supercontinents like Pangaea, which united almost all the lands into a single whole. This enormous mass of land created unique ecological niches for flora and fauna. Within Pangaea, the climate varied from tropical to arid deserts, contributing to the emergence of various ecosystems and the adaptation of species. It was in this complex and dynamic environment that conditions were formed for further evolutionary development, leading to the appearance of dinosaurs and other forms of life that we know today. Scientific research shows that at this time, oxygen levels in the atmosphere reached record highs, facilitating the growth of large organisms and accelerated metabolic activity. Many species of plants and animals that disappeared from the face of the Earth left behind only fossils and mysteries for future scientists to unravel. For example, ancient conifers, which now make up only a small part of the flora, once occupied vast areas and were the basis of the ecosystems of that era. As a result of these changes, Earth became a stage for complex interactions between species, leading to the appearance of more complex forms of life. Specific living conditions, such as high levels of carbon dioxide and higher temperatures, became the basis for the creation of new ecosystems. These changes were harbingers of the great transformations that would occur in the future when dinosaurs appeared on Earth. At the beginning of the Carboniferous period, Earth was covered in vast tropical forests that stretched across the entire planet, and the climate was warm and humid, creating ideal conditions for the rapid growth of flora and fauna. These forests were primarily composed of giant coniferous trees and the first ferns, some of which could reach heights of 30 meters. The absence of seasonal changes meant that the temperature remained relatively constant, fluctuating around 25 to 30 degrees Celsius, which promoted active photosynthesis and plant growth. The high humidity, combined with the warm climate, created perfect conditions for the formation of bogs, where mossy plants and the first seed-bearing plants thrived. The diversity of species in these ecosystems was astonishing, ranging from large tree forms to low-growing herbaceous plants that climbed the trunks of trees. The water from extensive rivers and lakes, which filled the lowlands, provided a habitat for the first amphibians and a variety of aquatic organisms. At this time, the first insects appeared on Earth, such as ancient dragonflies with wingspans of up to 75 centimeters. Their presence in the ecosystems served as an important indicator of the health of the surrounding environment. In these conditions, reptiles also evolved and began to occupy new ecological niches. The numerous coal deposits formed from the decay of plants became the foundation for future coal reserves, which, in turn, influenced the development of energy in later epochs. The geology of this period was diverse, with extensive plains and lowlands where limestone and sandstone deposits formed. This ecosystem, with its high biological productivity, became the basis for the further evolution and adaptation of organisms in the future. For example, in some regions, vast boggy areas developed, which became the habitat for the first amphibians, such as the Carboniferous ancestors of modern frogs. The level of oxygen in the atmosphere reached 35% due to the intense photosynthetic activity of ancient plants, including giant ferns and conifers, which covered vast territories. These plants possessed unique photosynthetic mechanisms that allowed them to efficiently capture solar energy and convert carbon dioxide into oxygen. In the warm and humid climate that promoted plant growth, organic matter accumulated as peat, further increasing the oxygen content in the atmosphere. This process was accelerated by the absence of microorganisms capable of decomposing organic matter, allowing carbon to accumulate and not return to the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. The ecological situation created ideal conditions for the growth of diverse forms of life, including large insects such as Meganeura with wingspans of up to 75 centimeters, which was impossible in today's conditions with low oxygen levels. These insects could develop large bodies as oxygen provided the necessary energy for their metabolism. Such conditions also facilitated the emergence and development of the first reptiles, which began to displace amphibians by adapting to new ecosystems. The higher level of oxygen also influenced the development of terrestrial ecosystems, where complex food webs emerged. The diversity of life on land and in water increased, allowing for the creation of new species and ecosystems. As a result, some plant species, such as tree ferns, reached heights of up to 30 meters, creating unique forest ecosystems. These forests became home to numerous animal species, contributing to their evolution. In such conditions, not only large creatures but also various small organisms survived, using oxygen for respiration and energy production. The maintenance of a high concentration of oxygen in the atmosphere also played a crucial role in the formation of coal deposits, as a significant portion of the vegetation did not decompose but turned into coal. These coal deposits became the primary source of energy for subsequent epochs. The high level of oxygen allowed the organization of complex ecosystems that had a long-term impact on the biosphere of the planet. Giant lepidodendrons, reaching heights of 30 to 40 meters and with trunks up to 2 meters in diameter, were among the most impressive plants of their time. These ancient plants, belonging to the Lepidodendraceae family, possessed unique characteristics that allowed them to dominate forest ecosystems. Lepidodendrons had tough, bark-covered trunks, making them quite resistant to mechanical damage. Their needle-like leaves, arranged in spirals, enabled them to efficiently capture sunlight even in dense vegetation. This structure allowed them to compete with other plants for light, which was crucial in the dense forests of the Carboniferous period. These plants not only provided oxygen, but also served as a food source for various creatures, such as ancient insects and herbivorous reptiles. While some plants absorbed carbon and released oxygen, lepidodendrons actively accumulated carbon in their tissues, contributing to the formation of coal deposits. Research indicates that lepidodendrons could reproduce both by spores and seeds, ensuring their high adaptability to various environmental conditions. The appearance of these giants led to the creation of unique ecosystems that supported biodiversity. In particular, their shade could foster the growth of smaller plants, creating complex, multi-layered forests. These forests were essentially the lungs of the planet, helping to maintain high oxygen levels in the atmosphere. Additionally, the cones of lepidodendrons, which contained seeds, could remain viable for a long time, allowing them to quickly colonize new territories after catastrophic events. Ultimately, lepidodendrons became the dominant element of the ecosystems that shaped the landscape of that era, and their remains can still be found in coal seams, preserving the history of past vegetation. The trunks of ancient pleodendrons had a distinctive structure that gave them a unique appearance. They were covered with rhombic scars formed by fallen leaves, which left their marks over time. These scars, in essence, were imprints that appeared on the bark when leaves fell and died, leaving traces of their shape. The trunks could reach a diameter of more than 2 meters, making them some of the largest among ancient plants. The root system of pleodendrons was massive and branched, providing stability and firm anchorage in the soil. The tops of these trees could reach heights of up to 30 meters, allowing them to dominate the forest canopy and receive maximum sunlight. The leaves of pleodendrons were long and narrow, reaching lengths of up to 30 centimeters, which facilitated effective photosynthesis. These leaves were typically arranged in a spiral pattern, maximizing the use of available sunlight. The internal structure of the trunk consisted of strong wood rich in lignin, making the trees resistant to mechanical damage and ensuring their longevity. Pleodendrons also had the ability to grow back, which allowed them to regenerate damaged parts of the trunk, increasing their chances of survival in competition with other plants. The formation of scars on the bark not only indicated the aging and life cycle of the tree, but also played a significant role in the ecosystem, providing shelter for small animals and contributing to the formation of microecosystems. These scars could persist for millions of years, as evidenced by fossil finds, allowing scientists to reconstruct the appearance of ancient forests. The discovery of pleodendrons in coal seams confirms that their remains have been preserved in conditions conducive to coal formation, making them important for the study of plant history. Giant calamites, which grew during the Carboniferous period, were true giants of the plant world, reaching heights of up to 20 meters. These plants had unique anatomy that allowed them to grow so tall. The main reason for their gigantic size was their structure. Calamites had hollow stems similar to bamboo, which provided them with lightness and strength. This construction allowed them to efficiently use sunlight, as competition for light was fierce in the dense forests of the Carboniferous period. The tall stems of calamites enabled them to rise above other plants, gaining access to sunlight. Additionally, their rapid growth was linked to high photosynthetic productivity, which was facilitated by the abundance of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere at that time. Calamites had a well-developed root system, which allowed them to extract nutrients from the soil. These roots also helped to stabilize the soil, preventing erosion, which played a crucial role in the ecosystems of those times. Research shows that calamites could grow on various types of soil, making them adaptable to different conditions. The height of these plants not only impressed, but also influenced the surrounding flora and fauna, creating unique ecosystems. Calamites served as shelter for many animal species, and their extensive root systems provided habitats for microorganisms. In turn, their gigantic size contributed to the formation of dense forests, which shaped the climate on Earth. Paleobotanists find fossilized calamites that help to better understand their structure and way of life. These findings show that calamites had complex branching, which increased the area of leaves and, consequently, the efficiency of photosynthesis. This was a significant factor in their evolution and success in the ancient forests. Calamites were one of the first plants to adapt to rapidly changing environmental conditions, which ensured their dominant position in the ecosystems of that time. Their presence in coal deposits confirms that they played a significant role in coal formation, as they left behind large volumes of organic material upon decomposition. Ultimately, the gigantic size and unique biology of calamites made them an important part of the ecosystems of the Carboniferous period, leaving a significant mark on the history of plant life. Tree-like ferns, Ceronius, were distinguished by their striking appearance and unique adaptations to their environment. They could reach heights of up to 30 meters and had enormous leaves, some exceeding 2 meters in length, which allowed them to effectively absorb sunlight in dense forests. The root system of Ceronius was equally remarkable. They formed complex, interwoven structures that not only provided stability to the plant, but also helped retain moisture in the soil. These roots could penetrate deeply into the earth, reaching layers rich in nutrients, enabling Ceronius to compete with other plants. Leaves growing from the top of the trunk formed a dense canopy that served as shelter for many small animals, such as lizards and insects, creating a whole ecosystem at height. Ceronius reproduced through spores that developed on the underside of the leaves, forming characteristic spore-bearing areas. These spores were light and could be carried by wind over long distances, facilitating the colonization of new areas. Ceronius also played a significant role in the carbon cycle, absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and releasing oxygen, thus maintaining the balance in the ecosystems of their time. Research indicates that they could grow in high humidity and shaded areas, making them versatile plants capable of adapting to various climatic conditions. Their wood was light and strong, allowing them to withstand strong winds and heavy rainfall without breaking. Ceronius were widespread in areas with moist and warm conditions, and their fossil remains are found in various geological layers. The appearance of Ceronius was one of the factors contributing to the formation of coal deposits through their accumulation and decomposition in the bottoms of ancient swamps. Ultimately, their enormous size and adaptive strategies made Ceronius key players in the ecosystems of the ancient world, leaving behind a rich legacy in the form of fossil remains. Corydeites were the first true forest-forming plants that created conditions for the existence of diverse flora and fauna characteristic of the Carboniferous period. These ancient ancestors of modern conifers were tall and slender, reaching heights of up to 30 meters, and possessed bark that protected them from pests and diseases. Corydeites had needle-like leaves that reduced evaporation and allowed them to survive in conditions of high humidity. Their root system was deep and extensive, providing stable nutrition and support in strong winds. Corydeites formed dense forests that shaded the soil and altered the microclimate, promoting the growth of other plants. These forests were home to numerous animal species, including insects, reptiles, and mammals, which depended on corydeites for food and shelter. Throughout their existence, corydeites developed unique reproductive mechanisms, including seeds that protected young plants from adverse conditions. These seeds were more resistant to drought and could spread over long distances by wind. Thus, corydeites played a crucial role in shaping ecosystems, ensuring stability and diversity. Their wood became the primary building material for early animals, which used fallen trees for shelters and nests. Moreover, corydeites contributed to the formation of coal deposits, which later became a vital source of energy and fuel for humanity. During the decomposition of their remains, large coal reserves were formed millions of years ago and continue to influence modern society. Corydeites represent a significant milestone in the evolution of plants, as they laid the foundation for the further development of coniferous forests that we see today. Their fossilized remains, found in various parts of the world, attest to their wide distribution and diversity of forms. Plants of the Carboniferous period reached their impressive sizes due to the high oxygen content in the atmosphere, which was around 30%, significantly exceeding today's levels of about 21%. This abundance of oxygen facilitated rapid plant growth and the formation of large forest masses consisting of tree ferns and conifers such as Archaeopteris. These plants could grow up to 30 meters tall, allowing them to effectively compete for sunlight. The absence of large herbivorous animals and the lack of modern insect pests also played a role in the formation of such giant forms of life. At that time, ecosystems lacked natural enemies, which allowed for uninhibited growth and development of flora. Furthermore, these conditions created an ideal environment for seed reproduction and dispersal, leading to the formation of dense forests. The leaves of these giant plants were large and wide, enabling efficient photosynthesis and the accumulation of significant amounts of energy. This accumulation of energy resulted in the formation of vast quantities of organic matter, which later became the basis for the formation of coal deposits. Given the favorable conditions, plants could develop in various ecosystems, from swamps to forests, forming diverse communities. These giant plants also had a unique structure that allowed them to retain water and withstand temperature changes, making them more resilient to climatic fluctuations. As a result, the flora of that time was characterized by an incredible diversity of forms and sizes, indicating a high level of biological activity. Fossil remains of these plants have been found with traces of ancient pollen and seeds, confirming their widespread distribution. One of the most famous species is the giant fern, which could spread over several hectares. In such conditions, plants not only survived, but also thrived, creating ecosystems teeming with life. Swampy forests of that time were dense and moist ecosystems where plants reached colossal sizes. The height of some tree ferns could reach 30 meters, creating impenetrable thickets. These forests were saturated with water due to constant rainfall and the presence of bogs, which formed as a result of the decomposition of organic remains. In such conditions, not only ferns but also a variety of coniferous trees, such as giant sequoias, thrived. These trees were distinguished by their massive bark and powerful trunks. In the undergrowth, mosses and ferns grew thickly, forming a dense carpet that allowed only a small amount of light to reach the ground. The soft and moist soil provided ideal conditions for the decomposition of plant remains, contributing to the formation of rich organic layers that harbored numerous microorganisms. In these forests, one could also encounter fossilized remains of ancient insects, such as dragonflies with a wingspan of up to 30 centimeters. These forests served as a home for numerous animal species, including early amphibians and reptiles, which used the dense undergrowth as shelter from predators. It was common to see large insects like primitive flies fluttering among the leaves, adding life to this primordial ecosystem. Notably, these swampy forests provided ideal conditions for the formation of coal, as millions of years ago, dead plants were buried in layers and turned into coal, which later became a significant source of energy for humanity. It is important to note that these forests were not only a home to a vast diversity of flora and fauna, but also played a crucial role in shaping the climate, regulating the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere through their ability to photosynthesize. Dead plants that accumulated in marshy forests under the influence of time and pressure transformed into coal. The process of coal formation, known as coalification, begins with the decay of vegetation, which is then submerged in water or mud. In such conditions, oxygen cannot reach the plant material, preventing its decomposition. Under layers of sediment such as sand and clay, plant remains begin to undergo biochemical changes. At this stage, microorganisms actively break down cell walls and other organic compounds. As layers of sediment accumulate, pressure increases and temperature rises, leading to further transformation of the vegetation into peat. Peat, consisting mainly of carbon, is the first stage in coal formation. Over millions of years, under the influence of temperature and pressure, peat transforms into lignite and then into brown coal, which in turn can eventually become bituminous coal. Bituminous coal contains approximately 80% carbon and is considered one of the most efficient sources of fuel. The most well-known coal deposits are located in countries such as the United States, Russia, China, and Australia. For example, in the United States, the largest deposit is in the Appalachians, where coal has been mined since the early 19th century. It is important to note that coal mines can reach depths of more than 1,000 meters. Geological processes, such as plate tectonics, can affect coal deposits, altering their location and accessibility. As a result, some deposits become inaccessible for mining, while others become available for development. In the 20th century, global coal consumption increased, and it became the primary source of energy for industry. Today, coal-fired power plants produce more than 40% of the world's electricity. Coal is formed through prolonged geological processes involving the remains of ancient plants such as horsetails and ferns. These plants, which grew in swampy areas, accumulated at the bottom of bodies of water. When they died, the plant remains were covered by layers of sedimentary rocks such as mud and sand, creating conditions for anaerobic decomposition. Under the pressure and temperature that accumulate over time, the process of carbonification occurs, transforming organic matter into coal. Initially, peat is formed, which then undergoes further metamorphosis to become bituminous coal. This process takes millions of years, and at different stages, coal can have different characteristics, such as anthracite with high carbon content or brown coal with lower carbon content. The Carboniferous period, named for its abundance of coal deposits, was significant in shaping the ecological system of the planet. During this time, vast forests existed, providing ideal conditions for the accumulation of plant material. Scientific research shows that in some regions, such as modern Europe and North America, coal deposits can contain biomass equivalent to billions of tons of coal. These reserves significantly influence the geological history of Earth and contribute to climate change. The Carboniferous period also served as the primary source of coal, which was later used during the Industrial Revolution when coal became the main source of energy and steel production. For instance, in the 19th century in Britain, coal became the primary fuel for steam engines, enabling the development of rail transport and industry. Today, coal reserves continue to be a strategic resource, playing a crucial role in the economy and energy sector of many countries. Coal mines that began to develop in the 19th century continue to operate in the 21st century, providing employment for millions of people. Giant dragonflies, known as Meganeuridae, lived in swamps and forests filled with vegetation that provided them with food and breeding grounds. These insects reached impressive wingspans of up to 70 centimeters, making them the largest flying insects of all time. Meganeuridae possessed unique anatomy, including strong and smooth wings that gave them remarkable maneuverability in the air. Their large and complex eyes allowed them to detect movements at great distances, which was crucial for hunting small insects like flies and other invertebrates. Studying their structure, scientists found that Meganeuridae had wings with different types of veins, ensuring excellent strength and flexibility. These dragonflies could reach speeds of up to 25 kilometers per hour, allowing them to hunt quickly and evade predators. Additionally, their flight capabilities were significantly enhanced by complex musculature that enabled efficient control of each wing movement. Meganeuridae inhabited humid environments, which facilitated their reproduction. Research shows that they could lay eggs in still water, where the larvae developed over a long period. The larvae of Meganeuridae had long bodies and powerful jaws, making them formidable predators that hunted other insects and even small vertebrates. Reproduction and development occurred in water bodies, allowing them to avoid competition with other species. Meganeuridae disappeared around 300 million years ago, but their fossilized remains are found worldwide, helping scientists better understand the ecosystems of that era. For example, in the 19th century, Meganeuridae fossils were discovered in coal mines across present-day Europe, indicating that these insects lived in tropical rainforests teeming with diverse flora and fauna. The size of Meganeuridae and their unique adaptations to their environment make them a subject of study for paleontologists and biologists seeking to understand how climate and ecosystems have changed over centuries. Today, their impressive size and wing structure remain important topics of study in the context of evolutionary processes that led to the emergence of modern dragonflies. Meganeuridae were the first insects to demonstrate that large size is not always a barrier to survival in complex ecosystems. Arthroptera, which lived in the conditions of tropical forests, was a true giant among myriapods, reaching lengths of up to 2.5 meters, making it the largest land arthropod in history. These creatures inhabited the Earth during a time when the oxygen level in the atmosphere was significantly higher than it is now, which contributed to their enormous size and active metabolism. Arthroptera had a hard exoskeleton, which allowed it to protect itself from predators, and developed powerful limbs capable of moving across complex landscapes. Research shows that it could move both on land and in trees, giving it access to various food sources, including vegetation and small invertebrates. Its complex anatomy included more than 30 pairs of limbs, allowing it to maneuver effectively in dense forests filled with obstacles. While modern myriapods primarily feed on decaying organic matter, Arthroptera likely had a more diverse diet, including predation. Fossil finds indicate that Arthroptera could reach such sizes due to its ability to adapt to changing environmental conditions, including climate changes and food availability. The legendary size of Arthroptera has sparked interest among scientists who continue to study its role in the ecosystems of that time. It was an important part of the food chain, and its disappearance was likely one of the factors that influenced the further development of terrestrial ecosystems. Fossils of Arthroptera have been found in various places, including coal mines in Europe and North America, confirming its wide distribution. Interestingly, its size and body shape could have served not only for protection, but also for attracting mates during reproduction. Scientific research shows that such large arthropods as Arthroptera were extremely vulnerable to changes in ecosystems, making their extinction a significant topic for study in the context of evolution. Studying Arthroptera helps us understand how large organisms adapted to their environment and what factors influenced their survival. As a result, Arthroptera remains one of the most discussed and studied organisms in paleontology, representing interest for both the scientific community and the general public. High levels of oxygen achieved during that period created ideal conditions for insects to grow to colossal sizes. The concentration of oxygen in the atmosphere exceeded 21%, which contributed to the enlargement of the respiratory systems of these organisms. Scientists hypothesized that this was the reason some species, such as the Meganeura, with wingspans reaching 70 centimeters, developed an effective respiratory mechanism. In a high oxygen atmosphere, insects could obtain more oxygen necessary for active metabolism, which in turn facilitated their growth. Remarkably, such enormous forms of life were not only a result of increased oxygen availability, but also the absence of natural predators. At that time, there were no mammals on the planet that could pose a serious threat to insects. Adaptation to the surrounding environment also played a significant role. Insects could develop larger sizes because their exoskeletons, composed of chitin, provided the necessary strength and protection. Experiments conducted with modern insects show that increasing the oxygen level to 30% can lead to a significant increase in their sizes, confirming the hypothesis that large insects in the past were a result of such conditions. Furthermore, the increase in insect sizes influenced the ecosystem. They could perform the functions of pollinators and nutrient distributors at a much higher level than their modern counterparts. Thus, high concentrations of oxygen not only facilitated survival, but also created a unique ecosystem where insects dominated. As the climate changed and the oxygen level decreased, insect sizes began to shrink, and by the end of this period, they no longer reached the same impressive sizes as their ancestors. Facts indicate that in conditions of oxygen saturation, insects could develop their genes, providing unique adaptations to the surrounding environment. Giant cockroaches, Archimilocris, were among the most impressive creatures of their time, reaching sizes comparable to rats. These insects, belonging to the Blattodea order, could grow up to 30 centimeters in length. Their enormous size was made possible by the high oxygen levels in the atmosphere, which allowed these creatures to develop their respiratory organs and maintain active metabolism. Archimilocris had a robust, flat body protected by a strong exoskeleton, enabling it to survive in various conditions, including harsh climatic changes. Fossil finds indicate that their front wings could span up to 35 centimeters, allowing them to fly over significant distances. These cockroaches had powerful jaws capable of chewing plant material, enabling them to consume a diverse diet, including tree bark and decaying organic matter. In their ecosystem, Archimilocris played a crucial role as a decomposer, facilitating the breakdown of organic matter and maintaining balance in the surrounding environment. Their presence also influenced other species, creating competition for food and territory. While many modern insects have evolved into smaller forms, Archimilocris exhibited unique adaptations that allowed it to survive and dominate its time. Fossils found in coal deposits confirm that Archimilocris existed for at least 30 million years and left a significant legacy. These insects not only drew the attention of scientists with their size, but also provided insights into the ecosystems of the Carboniferous period, when the planet was home to a vastly different life. Their fossils can be found in countries like Germany and the United States, highlighting the widespread distribution of these creatures. Archimilocris, like other giant insects, fell victim to climatic changes and a decrease in oxygen levels, ultimately contributing to the extinction of giant forms of life. Therefore, studying Archimilocris offers a window into the past, demonstrating how environmental conditions can impact the evolution and diversity of species. Currently, Archimilocris remains one of the largest known insects, making it a significant part of paleontological history. Scorpions, such as the Pulmonoscorpii that lived in prehistoric times, were remarkable for their size, reaching lengths of up to 70 centimeters. These predators had a hard exoskeleton that provided protection from enemies, as well as powerful pincers capable of capturing and holding prey. Pulmonoscorpii were uniquely adapted. They could breathe through both lungs and specialized areas on their bodies, allowing them to survive in low oxygen environments. Their potent venomous stings were used to paralyze prey, making them effective hunters in their ecosystems. Scientists believe that Pulmonoscorpii were among the first terrestrial predators, placing them in the ranks of other large arthropods of the time. These creatures inhabited shallow seas and coastal zones, where conditions were less dangerous for large predators, allowing them to thrive. The structure of their bodies enabled them to adapt to various conditions, making them competitive in the struggle for resources. Fossils of Pulmonoscorpii have been found in regions such as North America and Europe, indicating their widespread distribution. It is believed that their versatility and adaptability allowed Pulmonoscorpii to coexist with other species, including giant insects and primitive amphibians. Adult Pulmonoscorpii could weigh up to 1 kilogram, which was quite substantial for arthropods of that time. Analysis of their fossils shows that they had a well-developed nervous system, allowing them to quickly respond to threats and hunt effectively. These scorpions were also part of the food chain, serving as prey for larger predators. Pulmonoscorpii were significant players in the ecosystems of their time, and their extinction was one of the indicators of climate and habitat changes. These creatures left a significant mark on history, helping scientists understand how life on Earth evolved. The discovered fossils show that Pulmonoscorpii were capable of reproducing in diverse conditions, which facilitated their spread across different regions. As a result, Pulmonoscorpii became not only ancient predators, but also important subjects of study for paleontologists. During the Carboniferous period, there were no large vertebrate predators capable of controlling the sizes of arthropods, which was a result of several factors related to the ecosystem of that time. Firstly, the main predators were not vertebrates, but large invertebrates such as pulmonoscorpions and various crustaceans. These creatures could reach significant sizes, sometimes exceeding 80 centimeters in length, and effectively occupied the niche of predators in an environment where vertebrates were just beginning to develop. The absence of large vertebrate predators was also due to the fact that, at that time, there had not yet been a significant evolutionary leap among the ancestors of modern amphibians and reptiles. For example, early amphibians like Dictyodictyon, despite having more complex adaptations compared to jawless fish, did not reach sizes that could threaten large arthropods. Additionally, the ecosystem was oriented towards terrestrial and aquatic plants, which, despite their power, did not provide adequate food for large vertebrates. It is also worth noting that the climatic conditions characteristic of this period favored the development of tropical forests and swamps, but did not support large predators. For instance, high humidity and abundant vegetation created ideal conditions for the life and reproduction of invertebrates, while vertebrate predators could not compete for resources. The survival abilities of many invertebrate species allowed them to dominate the food chain, which also slowed the evolution of larger and more complex forms of life. Furthermore, extinct groups such as ancient fish did not have the adaptations that would allow them to effectively hunt large arthropods. These factors combined led to the fact that in the ecosystems of the Carboniferous period, there were no large vertebrate predators capable of regulating the sizes of arthropods, which continued until more advanced forms of life appeared. Ultimately, this period was a time of flourishing for invertebrates, which were able to occupy a dominant position in various ecosystems. Erpiops, one of the first amphibians, inhabited bodies of water surrounded by dense forests. These creatures could reach lengths of up to 1 meter, their bodies covered in smooth skin that allowed them to move effectively both in water and on land. Erpiops possessed powerful limbs that enhanced their agility in shallow waters and when hunting defenseless prey such as insects and small fish. Their wide, flat heads contained sharp teeth, making them efficient predators. These amphibians were capable of surviving in the most diverse conditions, which allowed them to quickly spread through ecosystems, occupying various ecological niches. Dipilocavsus, on the other hand, were larger amphibians, reaching lengths of up to 2 meters. Their bodies had a more robust and sturdy construction, providing better protection from predators. Dipilocavsus also had powerful hind limbs, enabling them to move quickly on land and make jumps necessary for hunting. These creatures were semi-aquatic, often inhabiting freshwater bodies where they could find food and shelter. The structure of their skulls and tooth rows indicated that they were primarily carnivorous, using their strength and speed to catch prey. These amphibians exhibited the first signs of adaptation to life on land, including changes in their respiratory system, allowing them to breathe air when on the shore. Erpiops and Dipilocavsus became significant figures in the ecosystems of their time, as they not only filled gaps in the food chain, but also became ancestors of more modern amphibians. Erpiops, for example, demonstrated how vertebrates gradually developed the ability to adapt to life on land, marking the beginning of a new era in evolution. These amphibians varied in shape and size, but they were all connected to the aquatic environment. Thus, their existence laid the foundation for many evolutionary changes in the future, ultimately leading to the emergence of more complex forms of life. Erpiops and Dipilocavsus left a significant mark on the history of life on Earth, as they were the predecessors of the transition to larger and more complex amphibians that colonized the land millions of years later. These creatures represent important elements in the chain of evolution, demonstrating how life on Earth adapted to changes in its environment. Eogyrinus, known as one of the largest amphibians of its time, could reach lengths of up to 4.5 meters and possessed a number of unique characteristics that set it apart from other members of its ecological environment. This giant amphibian had a powerful body, long limbs, and a large head with massive jaws, making it an effective predator in its aquatic habitats. Eogyrinus lived in freshwater environments such as rivers and lakes, where it hunted fish and small animals, using its sharp teeth to catch its prey. A distinctive feature of its anatomy was its flat, wide body, which allowed it to maneuver in water and quickly develop speed during hunting. Its ancestors were likely smaller creatures, but Eogyrinus became one of the pioneers in adapting to aquatic environments, allowing it to occupy a niche previously inaccessible to smaller amphibians. Paleontologists find fossil remains of Eogyrinus in various locations, including North America and Europe, indicating its wide distribution. Studies show that this species could develop its length through rapid growth during its juvenile period, giving it an advantage in competition for resources. Eogyrinus could also use its strong limbs for movement on land, opening up additional opportunities for hunting and shelter. The bones of Eogyrinus exhibit signs that indicate its ability to remain underwater for extended periods, which may have been related to its hunting habits. This species is a key link in understanding the evolution of amphibians, as its characteristics serve as an example of how animals adapted to diverse living conditions. As one of the first large predators, Eogyrinus symbolizes a transitional stage in the evolution of vertebrates, from aquatic environments to more complex forms of life inhabiting land. Fossils of this species are found in layers dating back millions of years, underscoring its significance in the study of ancient ecosystems. Eogyrinus has become a key object of study for paleontologists, as the examination of its anatomy and lifestyle helps to better understand how the evolution of amphibians occurred and what factors influenced their development in changing climates. The size of Eogyrinus and its adaptations to aquatic environments made it not only a predator, but also a significant participant in the ecosystems of its time, influencing the populations of other species and their evolution. Amphibians of that time were closely associated with bodies of water due to their reproductive habits and biological characteristics. Unlike reptiles, which managed to adapt to life on land, amphibians required water for reproduction. Their eggs, lacking a strong shell, could not survive in dry climates, so reproduction occurred in water bodies where they could develop in a safe environment. For example, frogs laid their spawn in still waters, providing the necessary humidity and protection from predators. Additionally, the larvae of these amphibians, such as tadpoles, needed water for their development, undergoing a metamorphosis stage where they transformed into adult individuals. Examples of such amphibians include various species of ancient salamanders that led a water-based lifestyle throughout a significant portion of their development. Their anatomical features, such as the presence of gills in the larval stage and lungs in the adult stage, highlight their dependence on aquatic environments. This necessity for water bodies not only restricted their habitat range, but also determined the ecological niches they occupied. Fossil studies indicate that in ecosystems where amphibians could freely reproduce, there was a diversity of species, indicating successful adaptation to conditions. It is important to note that such conditions provided not only safety for offspring, but also access to food, contributing to the survival of various forms of life. Ultimately, the dependence of amphibians on water bodies led to the formation of unique ecosystems where they became important participants in food chains, influencing the populations of other organisms. Research shows that it was precisely these reproductive and life cycle characteristics of amphibians that facilitated their successful existence in conditions where other species could not survive. First reptiles appeared on Earth as a result of an evolutionary process that allowed them to adapt to conditions inaccessible to amphibians. These creatures, such as diapsids and synapsids, possessed unique features that gave them significant advantages. Unlike amphibians, reptiles developed a protective eggshell, enabling them to reproduce on land without relying on water bodies. These eggs were covered with a strong shell that protected the embryos from drying out and predators, allowing the reproductive process to be extended over longer periods. Reptiles also had a more advanced respiratory system based on lungs, enabling them to efficiently extract oxygen from the air, while amphibians often relied on skin respiration, which required a moist environment. This allowed reptiles to inhabit more diverse and dry ecosystems. Additionally, their scaly skin prevented water loss, which was critically important for survival in high-temperature conditions and limited water access. Reptiles began to occupy niches previously inaccessible to amphibians and quickly spread across various ecosystems. They adapted to a wide range of conditions, from tropical forests to deserts. The appearance of the first reptiles also laid the foundation for the subsequent development of more complex forms of life, such as dinosaurs, which dominated the planet for millions of years later. These first reptiles not only transformed ecosystems, but also became the ancestors of all modern reptiles, birds, and mammals. The reptiles that appeared during this period paved the way for the diversity of species that we observe today. Gillinomus, one of the oldest reptiles of its time, was a small creature, about the size of a modern lizard, and inhabited dense forests that covered the earth. These reptiles belonged to a group known as pariasaurs and were distinguished by their unusual body shape, slender limbs, and long tail, which allowed them to move quickly through the undergrowth. Gillinomus had teeth characteristic of its species, enabling it to feed on plant material, but it could also be omnivorous. Its sharp teeth and chewing muscles ensured efficient food processing, which was crucial for its survival. Scientists believe that Gillinomus lived in warm and humid climates, where it could find diverse food sources, including leaves, seeds, and possibly insects. Fossils of Gillinomus have been found in various places, including the territories of modern-day United States and Europe, indicating its widespread distribution. The size of Gillinomus varied from 30 to 50 centimeters in length, making it small enough to hide from predators in dense vegetation. These reptiles also exhibited interesting behaviors. They could climb trees, providing additional protection and access to food. Gillinomus, like other early reptiles, played a significant role in the ecosystems of its time, contributing to the spread of vegetation and maintaining the balance of food chains. These creatures were the first to colonize terrestrial ecosystems, and their appearance preceded the explosive development of other reptiles, such as dinosaurs, which later became dominant. Gillinomus left behind numerous fossils that help scientists study the evolution of reptiles and their adaptation to changing environmental conditions. Research shows that Gillinomus had a relatively high metabolic rate, allowing it to be active throughout the day. Its ability to adapt to various climatic conditions was a key factor in its survival and spread across different regions. The legendary ability of Gillinomus to survive in conditions of intense competition and climate change was a significant step in the evolution of reptiles. It is important to note that Gillinomus was not just an observer of its time, but an active participant in the ecosystems it inhabited, contributing to the transformation of landscapes and biodiversity. These reptiles formed the basis for many species that followed, and their legacy continues to be studied by scientists around the world. Gillinomus embodies that ancient evolutionary lineage that led to the emergence of modern reptiles, birds, and mammals. The appearance of the amniotic egg was a revolutionary event in the history of reptiles, enabling them to successfully colonize land. Unlike previous forms of reproduction, this egg allowed embryos to develop in a protected environment, eliminating the need for a watery environment for reproduction. Amniotic eggs possess several key features that facilitated the survival and adaptation of reptiles to terrestrial life. Firstly, they are surrounded by an amniotic membrane, which prevents drying out and physical damage. Secondly, the presence of the allantois, which serves as a storage organ for metabolic waste and respiration, allowed embryos to efficiently utilize available resources. These adaptations significantly increased the chances of survival in environments where access to water may be limited. Reptiles, such as the ancestors of modern lizards and snakes, could lay eggs on land, providing greater freedom in choosing a place for reproduction. For instance, while amphibians were forced to lay their eggs in water, reptiles could inhabit a wider range of ecosystems, including deserts and forests. This also contributed to the diversification of species, from small lizards to large dinosaurs. Furthermore, amniotic eggs allowed reptiles to reduce competition with aquatic species, enabling them to occupy ecological niches previously inaccessible. Additionally, this form of reproduction provided protection for offspring from predators, which became a crucial factor in increasing their survival rate. As a result, reptiles were able to not only adapt to various climatic conditions, but also develop unique forms, such as armored turtles or flying lizards. The appearance of the amniotic egg laid the foundation for the further evolution of reptiles, opening the way for the emergence of mammals and birds. Ultimately, the amniotic egg became a symbol of the success of reptiles, who were able to conquer land and establish their dominance on the planet. Pelycosaurs, which inhabited Earth during the Carboniferous period, are a unique group of ancestors of mammals and play a significant role in the evolutionary history. Their distinctive feature was the characteristic sails on their backs, which originated from elongated spines of the vertebrae. These structures were likely used for thermoregulation or display, which could have played a role in the social behavior of these animals. Pelycosaurs could reach lengths of up to 5 meters and had powerful jaws, enabling them to effectively hunt a variety of prey, including fish and invertebrates. Their teeth were specialized for cutting and grinding, indicating a mixed diet. The most well-known representative of this group is the Dimetrodon, which, despite its name, is not a dinosaur, but rather belongs to more ancient forms of reptiles. Dimetrodon had unique anatomy, including long limbs, allowing it to move quickly on land. Research shows that pelycosaurs could occupy various ecological niches, from predators to herbivores. A key aspect of their lifestyle was their ability to adapt to different environmental conditions, which contributed to their survival and prosperity. They inhabited both wet and dry ecosystems and could be found in various landscapes, from forests to open plains. Pelycosaurs, like many other reptiles of that time, went extinct due to climatic changes and competition with more modern groups of animals. Their fossil remains have been found in various places, including North America and Europe, allowing researchers to better understand their anatomy and behavior. Today, pelycosaurs remain a subject of intense research as their unique features and lifestyle provide valuable information about the transition from reptiles to mammals. Fossils found in layers dating back over 300 million years offer researchers the opportunity to study their evolutionary relationships and adaptations that influenced the development of terrestrial vertebrates. Dimetrodon, which lived at the end of the Permian period, was the first large terrestrial predator and stood out among its kin due to its unique anatomy and behavior. This reptile could reach lengths of up to 4 meters and had a distinctive sail-like crest on its back, which could serve for thermoregulation or display. Its teeth were sharp and pointed, allowing it to effectively hunt other animals, including small reptiles and invertebrates. The structure of its jaws indicates that Dimetrodon was an active predator, capable of capturing and holding on to its prey. Studies show that Dimetrodon had a high metabolism, enabling it to be active even in fluctuating temperature conditions. Its remains, found in places like Texas and Oklahoma, allow scientists to analyze its lifestyle and behavior. Dimetrodon represents a significant milestone in the evolution of terrestrial vertebrates, as its anatomical features preceded the emergence of the first mammals. Its fossils, dating back over 200 million years, provide insights into how ancient ecosystems functioned and how predators adapted to changing conditions. Dimetrodon played a key role in the ecosystems of its time, significantly impacting the diversity and behavior of other animals. Compared to modern predators, Dimetrodon had unique adaptations, such as strong limbs, which allowed it to move on land, opening up new hunting opportunities. Its fossilized remains found in salt deposits indicate that it lived in warm and humid conditions, contributing to its successful survival. The presence of such large predators as Dimetrodon suggests that the ecosystems of that time were more complex and diverse than previously thought. This species not only pioneered among terrestrial predators, but also played a crucial role in the evolutionary chain that led to the emergence of mammals. The fossils of Dimetrodon, discovered in various geological formations, continue to captivate paleontologists who strive to understand its behavior and ecological role. By the end of the Carboniferous period, the climate underwent significant changes that affected ecosystems and biological diversity. Temperatures gradually decreased, leading to global cooling and changes in soil conditions. At this time, large continents began to form on Earth, and ocean levels fluctuated significantly due to tectonic activity. Continents shifted, creating new conditions for life. Warm, humid forests of the Carboniferous period gave way to drier and cooler climatic zones. As a result, some plant species, such as giant ferns and horsetails, which had dominated for millions of years, began to disappear. In their place, more resilient plants to changing conditions, such as cycad-like trees and conifers, began to appear. These changes in plant life, in turn, affected animals. Many species unable to adapt to the new conditions went extinct. At this time, mammals and reptiles began to develop, filling the niches left by the extinct species. It is important to note that by this time, climatic conditions began to favor the formation of large coal deposits, which became the basis for future coal mining. This also affected the carbon balance in the atmosphere, as coal deposits became a source of carbon released into the atmosphere during combustion. Furthermore, due to climatic changes, ecosystems shifted towards more arid and cold conditions, making the survival of many species more challenging. As temperatures continued to drop, more diverse ecosystems began to form, preparing the ground for further evolution of life on the planet. At this time, the first ancestors of modern mammals began to adapt to the new living conditions. Scientists have found that during this time, the level of oxygen in the atmosphere significantly increased, facilitating the growth of large terrestrial animals and increasing their metabolism. Facts indicate that climatic changes played a key role in the formation of the ecosystems that existed at the beginning of the Permian period. Gradual cooling and aridification of the climate led to significant changes in Earth's ecosystems, creating conditions where the survival of many species became a real challenge. During this period, the planet's temperature decreased, affecting both flora and fauna. There were vast forests dominated by conifers like araucarias and ginkgos, but with the deterioration of the climate, their diversity significantly decreased. Scientists determined that the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere had fallen, exacerbating conditions for vegetation. In conditions of water scarcity and low temperatures, many plant species began to go extinct, while others adapted to the new conditions by developing deeper root systems to find moisture. Giant insects like meganevras became less common, and their place was taken by smaller species that could adapt more quickly to changing conditions. Among mammals, the ancestors of modern species evolved towards more compact body forms, which helped them better retain heat. At this time, volcanic activity increased, leading to the release of sulfur and dust into the atmosphere, worsening climate conditions. The concentration of greenhouse gases changed, contributing to the formation of new climatic zones such as deserts, which occupied vast territories. This created unique conditions for the survival of only the most resilient species that could adapt to heat and water scarcity. Research shows that during this time, Earth experienced one of the most significant mass extinctions in history, with around 95% of all marine organisms and approximately 75% of terrestrial species going extinct. As a result of this catastrophic event, significant changes occurred in the planet's ecosystems, giving rise to new forms of life that began to fill the voids left by the extinct organisms. Climatic changes resulting from mass extinctions had a significant impact on the flora that developed during the Carboniferous period. Giant ferns, horsetails, and tree-like plants that previously dominated began to experience severe stress due to changes in the environment. Increased temperatures and decreased humidity led to many species being unable to adapt to the new conditions. For example, 30-meter-tall trees like Lepidodendron became rare because they required abundant moisture and specific microclimates for growth. Instead, more resilient species began to spread, capable of surviving in conditions of increased heat and water scarcity. At this time, plants like the seeds of noble conifers appeared, which were more resistant to drought due to their waxy coating that protected them from water loss. This change in the plant world opened up new ecological niches for various organisms, providing opportunities for evolution. With the transition to drier climatic conditions, new insect species also emerged, which became pollinators for plants adapted to the changed conditions. For instance, at this time, the first representatives of insects capable of surviving harsher conditions appeared, contributing to the further development of ecosystems. Moreover, changes in vegetation affected the fauna, as new plants became a source of food for animals that survived the changed conditions. Scientific research shows that as a result of these changes, species migration occurred, as they sought more suitable conditions for existence. Therefore, new drought-adapted plant species began to occupy niches previously occupied by giant ferns and horsetails, leading to a significant transformation of flora on the planet. By the end of this period, already more than 30% of plant species had been significantly altered, forming the basis for further evolutionary development of life on Earth. Giant horsetails and ferns began to decline due to abrupt changes in climate and ecosystems occurring during that period. A decrease in carbon dioxide levels and an increase in temperature led to significant changes in the growth conditions of plants. Many of these plants were unable to adapt to the new conditions, leading to their extinction. Spiders and ancient reptiles that depended on these plants also began to struggle for survival. One of the causes of their extinction was competition with new flora species that were more adaptable and resilient to changing climatic conditions. For example, seed plants such as conifers began to rapidly colonize new territories because their seeds could spread over long distances and provided greater resistance to drought. These new species had more efficient pollination mechanisms and could grow in a wider range of conditions, giving them an advantage. Studies show that by the end of this period, seed plants constituted 14% of all terrestrial plants. As a result of this competition, the habitat for giant horsetails and ferns became increasingly scarce, contributing to their extinction. The inability to adapt to new conditions also led to a decrease in their population. Additionally, changes in water levels in the bogs where they often grew had a negative impact on their existence. Drought periods and changes in the water balance further reduced their range. Against this backdrop, the ecological system underwent significant transformations, and by the end of this process, more than 90% of the species of giant horsetails and ferns had disappeared from the face of the Earth. The resilience of the ecosystem was compromised, and as a result of this disappearance, new communities emerged, dominated by more modern and adaptable plants. The first true conifers, such as pines and firs, began to appear on Earth as a result of ecological changes that occurred at the end of the Devonian and the beginning of the Carboniferous periods. These trees possessed important adaptations that allowed them to survive in conditions that were less stable than before. Conifers developed needle-like leaves, which reduced water evaporation and enabled them to survive in drier climates. During this time, genera such as Archaeopteris and other predecessors of modern conifers emerged. Archaeopteris, unlike its predecessors, was the first woody plant capable of reproduction by seeds, marking a significant step in the evolution of plants. This genus, which appeared approximately 300 million years ago, had a great height and a strong root system, allowing it to firmly anchor itself in the soil. By this time, ecosystems were undergoing transformations that created new niches for conifers. As a result of their adaptations, coniferous forests began to occupy extensive territories, especially in areas where giant horsetails and ferns previously dominated. Their wood, strong and resistant to decay, became an important resource for animals and humans. These trees, in turn, created a new level of ecosystem, where coniferous forests provided homes for numerous animals, including dinosaurs, which began to develop during this time. Pines and firs, which became dominant in the forests, began to spread actively due to their seeds, which could be carried by wind over long distances. This created conditions for their colonization of new territories, contributing to their evolutionary success. Throughout this period, conifers began to form unique ecosystems, in which complex food chains were established based on their wood, cones, and needles. Conifers not only altered the landscape, but also influenced the climate, as their foliage absorbed carbon dioxide and released oxygen, thereby contributing to changes in the atmospheric composition. It is worth noting that by the end of the Permian period, conifers occupied a significant portion of the forest masses, which foreshadowed their subsequent dominance in the Mesozoic era. Seed plants that evolved during the Permian period became a significant stage in the evolution of Earth's flora, as they possessed several advantages suited to dry climates. These plants, including groups such as gymnosperms and conifers, adapted to harsh conditions through their seeds, which protected embryos and ensured their survival in challenging environments. The seeds had hard shells, allowing them to retain moisture and protect against mechanical damage and ultraviolet radiation, which was particularly important in hot and dry regions. In conditions where water was limited, seed plants were able to spread more effectively than their spore-producing predecessors. For instance, the seeds of coniferous plants, with their light and winged forms, could be carried by wind over long distances, facilitating the colonization of new territories. This allowed them to occupy new ecological niches, while spore-producing plants remained restricted in their habitats. A crucial aspect was that seed plants began to develop root systems capable of penetrating deeper into the soil to find water. These roots not only supplied the plants with water, but also strengthened the soil, preventing erosion, which was critically important in arid conditions. Additionally, seed plants, with their ability to photosynthesize, could use solar energy more efficiently, allowing them to grow even in conditions of water scarcity. For example, some species, such as Araucarias, could reach heights of up to 50 meters and create dense forests that provided shade and helped maintain humidity in the surrounding environment. Thus, seed plants not only adapted to changing climates, but also began to form new ecosystems dominated by their species, ensuring biodiversity on Earth. Coniferous trees, such as sequoias, began to occupy vast areas, forming forests that became homes to numerous animals and other plants, creating complex interconnections within ecosystems. An example is that sequoias can live for more than 3,000 years and reach diameters of over 10 meters, making them some of the largest and most long-lived organisms on the planet. The decrease in oxygen levels in the atmosphere during the Permian period had a significant impact on the size of insects, which became one of the most fascinating aspects of the evolution of that time. Oxygen, as is known, is essential for the respiration of all aerobic organisms, and its concentration in the atmosphere varied significantly during this period. For instance, in some regions, the oxygen level dropped to 21%, creating stressful conditions for many species. However, in such conditions, insects, with their unique adaptations, were able to develop large sizes, which was related to their respiratory system based on tracheae. Tracheae allow insects to obtain oxygen directly from the air, making them less dependent on its concentration in the atmosphere. As a result, some insect species, such as the Meganeura, reached wingspans of up to 80 centimeters, making them the largest flying insects of all time. These giant insects could effectively absorb oxygen despite its low concentration, which is confirmed by their anatomical features, such as enlarged tracheae and a more efficient circulatory system. It is interesting that during this time, other large species also appeared, such as ancient scorpions and spiders, which took advantage of the reduced competition and changes in ecosystems. Thus, the decrease in oxygen levels allowed some insects to develop into giant sizes, which also contributed to their dominance in ecosystems. Changes in climate and flora, as well as the absence of large predators during this period, created ideal conditions for the reproduction and growth of these organisms. Scientific research shows that the level of oxygen in the atmosphere was linked to global climate changes, which, in turn, affected the biosphere as a whole. As a result, during the Permian period, we see not only the diversity of life forms, but also remarkable examples of adaptation that continue to interest scientists and researchers. The sizes of some insects during the Permian period demonstrate how life on Earth can adapt to changing conditions, and how evolution can lead to unexpected results. Scientific discoveries confirm that there were insects during that period that could reach sizes comparable to modern birds. Therapsids of the Permian period represent a group of advanced ancestors of mammals that began to evolve in conditions where climatic changes were forming new ecosystems. These creatures, belonging to the class of amniotes, differed from reptiles in their higher body temperature and complex tooth structure, which allowed them to adapt to diverse diets. One of the most well-known representatives of therapsids is the Dicynodon, which could reach lengths of up to 3 meters and possessed a powerful jaw capable of grinding plant material. Research indicates that its teeth were specialized for processing various types of food, making it one of the first examples of animals with a diverse diet. A significant aspect of their evolution was the development of fur, which suggests attempts to regulate body temperature necessary for survival in changing climatic conditions. Therapsids also had unique skeletal features, such as more vertically positioned limbs, which allowed them to move more effectively on land compared to their predecessors, which had limbs positioned laterally. These anatomical changes contributed to a more active lifestyle and ultimately paved the way for the emergence of mammals. A significant achievement of therapsids was the development of a complex respiratory system, allowing for more efficient oxygen uptake, which was critically important for survival in conditions of increased atmospheric carbon dioxide levels. Fossil evidence shows that therapsids were a diverse group, ranging from small forms the size of a cat to large animals comparable to modern rhinos. They occupied various ecological niches, indicating a high degree of adaptability to different living conditions. Notably, many therapsids had features characteristic of mammals, such as a more complex ear structure, which suggests their evolutionary connection to future mammals. These creatures not only survived in the complex conditions of their time, but also laid the groundwork for the further development of mammals, which eventually filled ecological niches following the mass extinction. Therapsids, in essence, became the predecessors of mammals, and their diversity and adaptations continue to be a subject of study for paleontologists seeking to understand how life on Earth changed over millions of years. This is evidenced by the discovery of Dicynodon remains in South Africa, which are dated to approximately 200 million years ago. Gorgonops, known as the first saber-toothed predators in Earth's history, are a remarkable example of evolution that occurred during the Permian period. These animals had distinctive long canines that could reach lengths of over 30 centimeters and used them for hunting other animals. Gorgonops were robust in build, with lengths of around 2 meters and weights sometimes exceeding 100 kilograms. A notable feature of their anatomy was the shape of their skull. It was elongated and wide, allowing for the placement of powerful chewing muscles and providing a wide field of vision. These predators were highly diverse, including species like Gryponotherium and Dimetrodon, which adapted to various conditions of their habitat. Unlike their predecessors, Gorgonops had a more advanced thermoregulatory system, enabling them to hunt in a wide range of climatic conditions. Their remains have been found not only in South Africa, but also in other parts of the world, including Russia and China, indicating a wide range of habitats. Findings show that Gorgonops preferred forest and shrubland ecosystems, where they could easily hide from their prey. They were active predators, hunting small herbivores and other creatures, using ambush and surprise tactics. Evolutionary changes in Gorgonops also included improvements in hearing and smell, giving them an advantage in hunting. Their skulls contained special depressions that indicated the presence of sensitive nerve endings, enhancing their ability to perceive sounds and scents. These features made Gorgonops one of the most successful predators of their time, but they did not survive the mass extinction that occurred at the end of the Permian period. Paleontologists continue to study their fossil remains to better understand how these creatures survived and adapted to the constant changes in their environment. Fossil finds of Gorgonops have been discovered in layers rich in the remains of other animals, suggesting that they occupied the top of the food chain and influenced the ecosystems of their time. The appearance of the first herbivorous reptiles, the pariasaurs, marked a significant step in the evolution of animals on Earth. These creatures, reaching lengths of up to 2.5 meters, were characterized by their robust build and tough skin covered in bony plates. Pariasaurs evolved in environments where new ecosystems were emerging, and competition between predators and herbivores was becoming increasingly intense. Their teeth were adapted for chewing vegetation, allowing them to feed on various plant species, including leaves and tree bark. Unlike their ancestors, pariasaurs had a more complex digestive system, enabling them to efficiently digest cellulose. These reptiles occupied a niche that was previously underrepresented, and their appearance contributed to the restructuring of ecosystems where both predators and herbivores coexisted. Fossil finds of parasaurs in Russia and South Africa confirm that they inhabited vast territories and adapted to diverse climatic conditions. Their remains were discovered in layers containing plant remains, indicating that they could freely move through grasslands and forests. Parasaurs may have led a social lifestyle, suggesting group interactions for protection against predators. Notably, their evolution coincided with the emergence of the first mammals, creating unique conditions for the evolution of various animal groups. Paleontologists note that parasaurs were predecessors of later herbivorous reptiles, such as dinosaurs, which significantly altered the planet's ecosystems in subsequent eras. These reptiles not only survived in harsh conditions, but also influenced the further evolution of other species. The remains of parasaurs indicate that they employed various strategies for foraging, including slow movement across territories in search of food sources. Additionally, their bony plates likely served not only as protection against predators, but also aided in thermoregulation, which was crucial for their survival in variable climates. Thanks to their adaptations, parasaurs became an integral part of the ecosystem, forming food chains and influencing the diversity of life in their time. The formation of the supercontinent Pangaea occurred as a result of complex tectonic processes, when the continents began to compress and unite into a single entity. This unification, consisting of the modern continents, took place due to the movement of plates that shifted and collided with each other. At the time of Pangaea's completion, approximately 300 million years ago, the continent covered nearly all the land surface of the planet, creating unique conditions for the climate and ecosystems. Given the vast expanse of Pangaea, this led to significant changes in climatic conditions. The interior regions of the continent experienced extreme temperatures, with hot summers and cold winters, making the climate more continental. On the other hand, coastal areas had a more moderate climate due to the influence of the oceans. Large deserts formed on the interior side of the continent due to the lack of moisture, as the oceans were at a significant distance from the center of Pangaea. These conditions fostered the development of specific ecosystems, including diverse plants and animals adapted to harsh conditions. For instance, at this time, the first coniferous trees began to appear, capable of surviving in arid conditions. Meanwhile, on the periphery of Pangaea, there were more humid and fertile zones where tropical forests thrived. These forests served as habitats for numerous species, including early reptiles and amphibians, which began to evolve and diversify. The changes in climate caused by the formation of Pangaea also impacted biogeography, as many species began to migrate in search of more suitable living conditions. By the end of the Permian period, the continental structure of Pangaea had significantly influenced the distribution of flora and fauna, creating new ecological niches. Interestingly, such climatic changes resulting from the unification of the continent led to the extinction of some species that were unable to adapt, which preceded later mass extinctions. Scientific research indicates that these changes in climate and ecosystems played a crucial role in the evolution of life on Earth. Inland deserts that emerged in the center of the supercontinent Pangaea were the result of unique climatic conditions that developed during that period. The supercontinent, covering a large part of the Earth's surface, significantly altered the circulation of atmospheric flows. This led to the formation of vast arid regions where rainfall was extremely low and temperatures reached extreme values. Within Pangaea, large desert areas such as the Karoo stretched for thousands of kilometers, creating conditions that were not suitable for life. Flora and fauna that could survive in such conditions adapted to high levels of evaporation and lack of moisture. For example, reptiles living in these deserts developed special thermoregulation mechanisms and could survive without water for long periods. The main types of plants, such as conifers and ferns, were rare, while herbaceous and thorny plants that could survive in conditions of water scarcity dominated. The arid climate contributed to the formation of salt flats and large sand dunes, which changed the landscape of the deserts. Unique ecosystems also existed in these conditions. For example, in some places, temporary water bodies formed, attracting short-term animal migrations. These migrations were important for maintaining populations, as access to water was otherwise difficult. Since Pangaea occupied a large part of the planet's surface, it became the center of many geological processes, including volcanism and tectonic movements, which also influenced the climate and ecology of the region. Volcanic activity in some parts of Pangaea led to the formation of fertile soils, creating a contrast with the surrounding desert landscapes. As a result of these processes, complex ecosystems emerged that, despite the harsh conditions, were able to maintain biodiversity. For example, in some desert oases, one could encounter rare animal and plant species that had adapted to life in extreme conditions. These oases often became centers of life for migrating species and played a significant role in the ecosystem of the deserts. The deserts of Pangaea served as a kind of laboratory for studying the adaptation of living organisms to extreme conditions, providing unique data on the process of evolution. Ultimately, the internal deserts of Pangaea not only shaped the landscape, but also actively contributed to evolutionary changes that occurred during this time. Geographical changes that occurred during the Permian period had a significant impact on the evolution of life. The fusion of continents led to the formation of the supercontinent Pangaea, which altered the climatic conditions and ecosystems on the planet. The internal regions of Pangaea became isolated, which facilitated the development of unique organisms. For instance, in these conditions, the first reptiles appeared, which adapted to warmer and drier conditions, unlike their amphibian ancestors. At the same time, there was an increase in the diversity of marine organisms such as trilobites and ammonites, which became important elements of ecosystems. Parallel to this, terrestrial ecosystems underwent changes. Forests consisting of giant ferns and conifers began to dominate the landscape. Due to climatic changes, including global warming, a transition to more diverse and resilient ecosystems occurred. These conditions facilitated the evolution of various groups of organisms, including the ancestors of mammals and birds. Other factors, such as changes in sea level, also influenced the distribution of species. In some areas, flooding occurred, creating new marine ecosystems, while in others, the exposure of land created new opportunities for plant and animal colonization. Additionally, changes in atmospheric conditions caused by volcanic activity led to an increase in carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, which in turn facilitated the development of tropical forests. These forests became important centers of biological diversity, where new species of flora and fauna were formed. As a result, by the end of the Permian period, there was a significant increase in biodiversity, which became the foundation for future ecosystems. An example of this is the appearance of the first true mammals, which began to evolve in conditions where competition with other groups of organisms became increasingly intense. The most notable event of this time was the mass extinction, in which approximately 95% of marine species and 75% of terrestrial species disappeared. This extinction opened up new niches for the surviving organisms, which facilitated further evolution and diversification of life on Earth. In this context, changes in geography and climate became the driving forces behind evolutionary processes, shaping the diversity of living beings that we observe today. By the end of the Permian period, an ecological crisis reached a critical point, a result of the combination of several factors. The main factor was a sharp change in climate, characterized by both global warming and increased ocean acidity. This was caused by intense volcanic activity in the region of modern-day Siberia, where a vast area of volcanoes known as the Siberian Traps formed. Volcanic eruptions over millions of years released trillions of tons of carbon dioxide and sulfur gas into the atmosphere, contributing to the greenhouse effect. The change in ocean and atmospheric temperatures led to an increase in average temperatures by 8 degrees Celsius, which was fatal for many species. Additionally, oxygen levels in the atmosphere decreased due to the rapid growth of microorganisms, creating further difficulties for surviving mammals and other organisms. At this time, there was also a massive destruction of vegetation, affecting both terrestrial and marine ecosystems. Forests that once covered large areas began to die out, leaving empty spaces where conifers and ferns once grew. This reduction in vegetation led to a loss of food sources for many animals, exacerbating their situation. The slowing of photosynthetic processes also contributed to the deterioration of air quality, which in turn affected the health of oxygen-dependent organisms. Underwater ecosystems also faced significant changes. The level of oxygen in water fell, leading to the mass extinction of marine organisms. For example, during this time, approximately 90% of coral species disappeared, along with a significant number of mollusks and other marine creatures. These conditions resulted in the fact that by the end of the Permian period, less than 1% of all species remained on Earth, making it one of the most catastrophic mass extinctions in the history of the planet. The state of ecosystems continued to worsen, leading to a sharp decrease in biodiversity and opening the way for new species that could adapt to the changed conditions. Siberian traps represent one of the most significant volcanic events in Earth's history, occurring at the end of the Permian period. These colossal eruptions formed vast layers of basalt lava covering an area of approximately 1 million square kilometers, creating impressive geological formations that can still be observed today. Volcanic activity began around 100,000 years ago and continued for several million years, resulting in lava layers up to 2,000 meters thick. The eruptions were so powerful that they released enormous volumes of carbon dioxide and sulfur into the atmosphere, leading to a dramatic change in climate. This climate change likely caused cooling and increased ocean acidity, which had a negative impact on marine ecosystems. Studies show that the volcanic activity increased the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere by about 3 times, leading to a greenhouse effect. The Siberian traps not only affected the climate, but also the ecological situation, contributing to the appearance of toxic rains and decreased oxygen in water. These factors played a crucial role in the mass extinction of organisms that occurred at this time. For example, as a result of these changes, most marine creatures, such as trilobites and many fish species, went extinct. It is also important to note the impact on terrestrial ecosystems. Forests inhabited by various plants and animals also suffered from the changes in climate and ecological conditions. Studies show that on land, more than 70% of all species went extinct, which in turn opened new niches for the survival and evolution of the remaining organisms. The Siberian traps are not just a geological phenomenon, but a catastrophe that changed the entire life on the planet, creating conditions for a new stage in evolution. The volcanic activity also led to the formation of significant coal and other fossil fuel reserves, which later became the basis for the economic development of various regions. There are also theories linking the eruptions to the formation of large oil and gas fields, highlighting the importance of these geological processes for the modern world. Volcanic rocks formed as a result of these eruptions are still studied by scientists, providing insights not only into the history of Earth, but also into the processes that occurred in the distant past. The Permian-Triassic extinction event was the greatest catastrophe in Earth's history, leading to the disappearance of approximately 96% of all marine species and 75% of terrestrial animals. This cataclysm was the result of a combination of several factors. One of the main mechanisms was volcanic activity in the region of the present-day Siberian traps, where eruptions likely lasted for several million years. Massive volumes of lava were released onto the surface, forming thick layers of volcanic rock. These eruptions released significant amounts of carbon dioxide and sulfur gases into the atmosphere, leading to rapid climate change. Concurrently, global warming caused changes in the oxygen levels in the oceans, which negatively impacted marine life. Studies indicate that the ocean temperature could have risen by 9 degrees Celsius, contributing to the mass extinction of corals and other marine organisms. The abrupt change in ecological conditions also affected terrestrial ecosystems. A decrease in oxygen levels and an increase in carbon dioxide led to the death of multicellular organisms, disrupting food chains. This event was a pivotal moment in Earth's history, as it paved the way for new forms of life, including dinosaurs, which dominated the planet for the following millions of years. As a result of the Permian-Triassic extinction, there was a sharp shift in ecosystems, altering the biosphere and creating conditions for the evolution of new species. Scientists continue to study this period to better understand how such catastrophes can affect life on Earth. There are hypotheses that climate changes and ecological catastrophes have a cyclical nature, and studying the Permian-Triassic extinction may provide insights into contemporary ecological crises. For instance, Subsequent research has shown that volcanic activity increased the level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere by more than 3 times, leading to global climate changes. During the Permian-Triassic extinction event, considered one of the most catastrophic events in Earth's history, up to 96% of marine species and 70% of terrestrial vertebrates went extinct. Scientists attribute this to numerous factors, including rapid climate changes, volcanic activity, and changes in ocean oxygen levels. Volcanic eruptions in the region of present-day Siberia created vast lava plains known as the Siberian Traps, which released enormous quantities of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. This led to global warming by tens of degrees, making many ecosystems inhospitable for life. Among the affected marine species were trilobites, which had existed for millions of years but could not survive such rapid changes. The extinction led to the collapse of marine ecosystems, where coral reefs, once home to many species, disappeared, leaving behind vast empty spaces. Terrestrial vertebrates, such as large reptiles and some amphibians, also failed to adapt to the new conditions. As a result of climate change and reduced food availability, many animal species, including the ancestors of dinosaurs, went extinct. During this time, new ecological niches began to form, which were later filled by various groups of animals, including the first dinosaurs, which began to dominate in the new conditions. Scientists believe that this extinction event served as a catalyst for the evolution and diversification of species over the subsequent millions of years. For example, it is known that as a result of this event, a new era began in which the first mammals appeared, occupying the niche left vacant by the disappearance of large reptiles. Compared to them, the size and diversity of dinosaurs in the Triassic period were modest. But this period laid the foundation for their further development and dominance in the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. Approximately 100 million years after this extinction event, dinosaurs reached their peak, occupying various ecological niches, from predators to herbivores, which was made possible precisely by the catastrophic changes that occurred as a result of the Permian-Triassic extinction. Dead zones in the oceans have become one of the key topics in the study of the consequences of the Permian-Triassic extinction. These areas, characterized by a lack of oxygen, emerged due to a sharp change in temperature and water composition, leading to the death of marine organisms. The level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere rose to 6,000 parts per million, causing significant warming and, as a result, a decrease in the solubility of oxygen in water. As a result, many marine ecosystems were threatened, as organisms dependent on oxygen could not survive in these conditions. One of the most striking examples of this phenomenon is the South China Sea, where the oxygen level dropped to critical values, killing millions of marine creatures. In addition, acid rain, caused by carbon dioxide and sulfur emissions, exacerbated the situation on land. These rains destroyed soils, reducing their fertility, making it impossible for many plant species to exist. Soil acidosis also led to the fact that some ecosystems, previously abundant, became empty. For example, in regions where dense forests once grew, mass extinction of flora was observed, which in turn affected fauna. Research shows that at this time, many species, such as ancient ammonites and brachiopods, became virtually extinct. In such conditions, marine life could not recover for millions of years, and the ecosystems that existed underwent significant changes. The degree of change was so pronounced that by the end of this period, completely new ecosystems emerged, where only a few species that survived in conditions of oxygen deficiency existed. These dead zones remain a subject of study today, as they demonstrate how quickly life on the planet can change in response to climate changes and anthropogenic impacts. In some regions, such as the Gulf of Mexico, dead zones continue to form, offering scientists a unique opportunity to study current changes in ecosystems. The composition of the atmosphere underwent significant changes during the Permian-Triassic extinction event, which was one of the key factors in the mass die-off of living organisms. The level of carbon dioxide rose to 30%, turning the atmosphere into a toxic mixture that contributed to global warming. While the normal level of carbon dioxide was around 250 parts per million, it skyrocketed to more than 4,000 parts per million. This change led to a sharp increase in global temperature, which in turn caused a loss of oxygen in the oceans and the formation of dead zones. Concurrently, there was a significant decrease in the oxygen content, which fell to 20%, making it insufficient to support most life forms of the time. The increase in methane, another greenhouse gas, also added to the atmospheric problems, contributing to abnormal climatic conditions. These changes were caused by volcanic activity, which released enormous volumes of carbon into the atmosphere. Volcanic activity in the region of present-day Siberia, known as the Siberian Traps, erupted lava and gases, further exacerbating the situation. Many ecosystems, particularly marine ones, were threatened as oxygen became scarce in ocean waters. As a result, the extinction event, which affected 96% of all species, occurred against the backdrop of catastrophic changes in the atmosphere, serving as a lesson for future generations. The recovery of ecosystems after these events took millions of years, demonstrating how rapidly the balance of life on the planet can change. Currently, evidence of these changes is preserved in the form of geological deposits, which indicate the levels of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the ancient atmosphere. After the Permian-Triassic extinction event, which led to the disappearance of 96% of all species, only a few groups of organisms remained on the planet, which became the ancestors of future dinosaurs and mammals. These surviving creatures were small reptiles and amphibians that adapted to the changed conditions. Among them, groups like archosaurs, the ancestors of dinosaurs, and synapsids, which later evolved into mammals, stand out. Archosaurs, for instance, had distinctive features. They had long legs and sharp teeth, which allowed them to hunt small animals and insects. The evolution of these reptiles went in the direction of increasing body size and diversity of forms, which later paved the way for the dominance of dinosaurs in the Mesozoic era. Synapsids, on the other hand, began to develop more complex thermoregulatory systems, which increased their chances of survival in unstable climates. This allowed them to survive in the shadow of dominant reptiles, gradually adapting to life in various ecosystems. By the time the first dinosaurs began to appear on Earth, synapsids had already formed groups that later became the ancestors of mammals. Research shows that some of these early mammals, such as the Triceratops-like mammals of the Triassic period, were the size of a mouse and led a nocturnal lifestyle, which allowed them to avoid competition with large dinosaurs. Evidence of the existence of these animals is found in fossil remains, which show how they evolved to occupy niches left by extinct species. For example, fossil remains found in Australia indicate that mammals began to develop fur, which helped them retain heat and protect themselves from predators. Thus, the organisms that survived the Permian-Triassic extinction became the foundation for further evolutionary development, which led to the appearance of dinosaurs and mammals that eventually filled various ecosystems of the planet. Fossil finds show that it was during this time that key adaptations began to form, which later determined the success of these groups. The Permian-Triassic extinction event, one of the most catastrophic events in Earth's history, opened up ecological niches that allowed new groups of animals to thrive during the Triassic period. As a result of this mass extinction, approximately 96% of all marine species and 75% of terrestrial species disappeared, creating favorable conditions for rapid evolutionary development of the remaining organisms. For instance, during the Triassic period, archosaurs, the ancestors of modern crocodiles and birds, began to flourish and occupy the ecological niches left by the extinct reptiles. Their diversity was evident in various forms, including early dinosaurs such as Eoraptor and Stegosaurus, which began to fill the vacant niches of predators and herbivores. These dinosaurs possessed adaptations that enabled them to effectively hunt and survive in the new conditions, such as strong hind legs for swift movement and sharp teeth for tearing flesh. During this time, there was also a proliferation of mammals, which began to develop in small sizes and primarily at night to avoid competition with dinosaurs. Fossil evidence shows that mammals like the Triassic creodonts began to evolve unique traits, including highly developed senses and diverse feeding methods. Additionally, Triassic forests became habitats for many new plant species, such as ferns and conifers, which provided food and shelter for the newly emerging animals. All these changes created new ecosystems that served as the foundation for further evolution, leading to the dominance of dinosaurs on the planet by the end of the Triassic period. For example, some ancient conifers reached heights of 30 meters, creating a dense forest canopy that was an ideal habitat for a diverse range of flora and fauna. These ecological transformations acted as a catalyst for the emergence of new species, which in turn led to further evolutionary diversification in subsequent geological epochs. The Permian-Triassic extinction event was one of the most significant ecological catastrophes in Earth's history, wiping out more than 95% of all species on the planet. This event opened the door to a new era, during which reptiles began to dominate ecosystems. As a result of the extinction, many groups of organisms, including large amphibians and some marine species, disappeared, creating a vacuum for new creatures to fill the vacant niches. Reptiles, adapted to various conditions, became the main competitors in these new ecosystems. During the Triassic period, some reptiles reached lengths of up to 10 meters, such as theropods, which eventually evolved into the ancestors of modern birds. This period witnessed the emergence of the first dinosaurs, which began to develop from small, agile reptiles adapted to life on land. The conditions that arose after the extinction facilitated the creation of diverse ecosystems where reptiles could successfully reproduce and evolve. For example, the discovery of new habitats, such as forests and open plains, provided reptiles with resources for food and reproduction. Thanks to this, groups like archosaurs, which became the ancestors of dinosaurs and crocodiles, developed during the Triassic period. These reptiles evolved into a wide range of forms and sizes, from small lizards to enormous dinosaurs, which contributed to their survival in various conditions. Reptiles began to actively colonize terrestrial ecosystems, which laid the foundation for their subsequent dominance in the Mesozoic era. The discovery of new ecosystems also facilitated the appearance of the first mammals, which, although relatively small, began to develop in parallel with reptiles. Thus, the connection between the Permian-Triassic extinction and the flourishing of reptiles in the Triassic period lies in the creation of conditions for their evolution and dominance, which became the basis for the subsequent development of the entire fauna, including the appearance of the first dinosaurs, which began to actively reproduce and occupy various ecological niches, as well as the formation of new types of ecosystems that ensured their existence. Reptiles that adapted to new conditions could reach sizes of up to 30 meters, demonstrating their successful adaptation and evolution in the changing world. Archosaurs are a group of reptiles that evolved into the ancestors of dinosaurs and appeared during the Triassic period. These creatures were characterized by distinctive features such as vertically positioned limbs, which allowed them to move more efficiently compared to their predecessors. Archosaurs developed in diverse ecosystems, which facilitated their adaptation and evolution. One of the earliest representatives of this group is Archaeopteryx, which combined features of both dinosaurs and birds. It possessed feathers and was capable of flight, making it a significant link in evolution. Another notable representative is the crocodile morph, which, although not a direct ancestor of dinosaurs, exhibited some adaptations characteristic of archosaurs. These animals varied greatly in size, ranging from small creatures just a few dozen centimeters long to large forms exceeding 10 meters in length. Some archosaurs, such as theropods, developed predatory adaptations, including sharp teeth and swift movements, enabling them to effectively hunt other animals. Others, like sauropods, acquired herbivorous characteristics, reflected in their dental structure and digestive system, adapted for consuming vegetation. Notably, archosaurs not only evolved within their groups, but also actively interacted with their environment, contributing to their diversity. They inhabited both terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems, expanding their range and survival prospects. An example is the plesiosaur, which was an excellent swimmer and hunter in marine depths. These early reptiles played a crucial role in shaping the ecosystems of the Triassic period, establishing food chains and influencing biological diversity. The distinctive features of archosaurs, such as their skull and limb structure, allowed them to occupy various ecological niches, forming the basis for the subsequent dominance of dinosaurs in the Mesozoic era. Importantly, Archosaurs, as they evolved, provided the conditions for the emergence of the first true dinosaurs, marking a new stage in evolution. While they themselves represented an intermediate stage, their diversity and adaptive traits ensured the success of future life forms. The existence of archosaurs, their sizes and adaptations to various living conditions demonstrate the dynamism and diversity of the Triassic period, where they played a significant role in the evolutionary process. After the Permian-Triassic extinction event, which wiped out approximately 95% of all species on Earth, ecosystems began to slowly recover. During this time, conditions on the planet favored the emergence of new forms of life. The first ecosystems formed due to a multitude of factors, including climatic changes and geological activity. As a result of rising temperatures and increased levels of carbon in the atmosphere, tropical forests began to occupy more space. These forests, composed of fern-like plants and coniferous trees, became the foundation for a new food balance. Important roles were played by species such as ginkgo and sequoia, which adapted to rapidly changing conditions. At this time, opportunistic ecosystems also became active, where the most resilient species, such as certain reptiles and amphibians, began to fill the gaps left by the extinction. In particular, the first precursors of dinosaurs, such as archosaurs, began to adapt to various conditions and develop new survival strategies. These creatures, with unique physical characteristics, including light and agile limbs, began to occupy ecological niches previously occupied by other animal groups. It is important to note that reptiles became dominant in the ecosystems that developed on the sites of the extinct groups. The first dinosaurs, such as Eoraptor, began to appear in various forms, including herbivores and carnivores. This diversity ensured the stability of ecosystems, which was critically important for the further development of life on the planet. In addition, marine flora and fauna also began to recover, with the appearance of organisms such as brachiopods and mollusks, which filled the gaps in marine ecosystems. On coral reefs, new colonies of corals began to form, creating a foundation for biodiversity in the oceans. These changes marked the beginning of a new stage in the evolution of life on Earth, where each new form of life played its role in the recovery of ecosystems and the creation of new food chains. The appearance of the first true dinosaurs, such as Stegosaurus and Triceratops, became possible due to this recovery, which continued for millions of years. Each new discovery in this field of science shows how quickly nature can recover from a catastrophe, creating new opportunities for life. Giant plants that dominated ecosystems became the foundation for the formation of soil, on which later developed diverse forms of life. These plants, including conifers and ferns, reached colossal sizes, creating dense forests that served as a refuge for numerous animals. While new ecosystems were developing on land, diverse fish appeared in water bodies, including ancestors of modern sharks and ray-finned fish. These changes in the environment facilitated interaction between different forms of life, which in turn formed complex food chains. The appearance of the first amphibians, such as dark-colored tetrapods, became possible due to adaptations they acquired in the conditions of the primordial ocean and its shores. These creatures began to occupy new niches, paving the way for further development of reptiles. During this period, there was a significant increase in biodiversity, which was also a result of constant climate and geological changes that facilitated the migration and isolation of various species. It is important to note that the Permian-Triassic extinction, although it was a catastrophe for many species, also opened new opportunities for survival and development of other forms of life. Without this global event, which destroyed about 90% of all species on the planet, the evolution of reptiles would have been impossible. As a result of this crisis, only the most adaptable species survived, leading to the appearance of dinosaurs in the following period. These giant reptiles, with unique characteristics such as powerful limbs and diverse forms, became dominant in the ecosystems that emerged after the extinction. Their sizes varied from small herbivores to massive predators like the Tyrannosaurus rex, which could reach 12 meters in length. Thus, changes in the plant world and adaptations of animals in the Carboniferous and Permian periods prepared the ground for the appearance of dinosaurs, which became the symbol of the Triassic period.